Hello, beautiful hearts. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I am joined with the lovely Joanna Pitt, evolutionary astrologer extraordinaire. And today, we are going to be discussing the energetics from an astrology and esoteric viewpoint. If you're new to my channel, my name is Jennifer Glendenning. I'm an intuitive, a medium, a light language channel, and a spiritual development mentor. All right, Joanna, let's get started, shall we?
Yeah, so excited to be here. I'm very happy that we're recording one of our conversations because we go in quite fabulous, deep, esoteric directions. So let's see where we head today.
We do, and I think we had discussed this. Why not just record this and put it out because there's so much juiciness and information that we're each other's mirrors, right? So, um, for some of you that follow me, you also know that I hold a channeled meditation group every Thursday night. And this is where my guides, my team, the spirit realm comes in to support and accompany. So this is how I would like to move today with Joanna is the messages that are being channeled through me for our spiritual development, and how they line up with the mathematical or astrology viewpoint. This is where Joanna and I just we love communicating and connecting with this because I'll bring something through. Like the other day, I was getting a message about Celestia, and then Joanna will tag something to me like, oh my God, Celestia, like, where did this come from? And this is where we like to blend this. So um if you are into the mathematical and you're very logical, less I guess I don't know what you would say, like fairy goddess energy like me, you might, really find a lot of depth and more structure in the mathematical numerology, or not numerology. Well, I guess
Yeah, I
astrology,
mean,
numerology part of
I,
it.
I think the thing that's the most interesting from my perspective, and probably, you and I are coming at it from different perspectives. I'm very logical, very grounded. If you were to look at my natal chart in astrology, it's all earth and also
Yeah.
air. Earth and air is kind of my area, right? Water is a lot more intuitive. I have nothing in water. Fire is a lot more action oriented. Don't have a lot in fire, right? So we're all coming, we all have our own energetic blueprints, whether you look at a natal chart, look at the planets, or you just live your life, right? We all have something unique and these points of differentiation. And I think this is one of the fascinating things as we go through our lives and the people that we encounter, which I'm more and more tuning into the fact that all connections are divine connections. And the people that show up are here, as you mentioned, between the two of us to mirror something or to present something to us, a projection that we need to work through, or there's something that we can grow or learn or go back and revisit. And uh, I don't know. I mean, all of these connections are just so interesting, right? So, but it
Absolutely.
it all starts with our own energy, not only where we started, and from my perspective, I like to look at the natal astrology chart, but you could even just say, when I was a kid, I behaved this way, but now I'm an adult and I've moved on and now I do this, right? So maybe somebody was a very shy child, but then through a series of events or circumstances, they've kind of come into their own and they're ready to sort of present to the world and have a bigger presence or a bigger auric field or move the energy in a new way, and vice versa. Some kids,
Exactly. Yeah.
that are like, maybe, I don't know how it's been in your
No,
area.
that's the evolution, right? That's the
Yeah.
evolution of soul growth, of expansion.
Yeah.
Um,
But there's also, like, just want to say, these kids or these people that, you'll say, well, they peaked in high school, right?
mhm.
And it's sort
Yeah,
of like that. Sometimes that's true. And, whether they're a star athlete or they were like, their beauty showed up in a particular way or their talent showed up in a particular way, And then they went through life and took turns and this and detours, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not coming at that from a judgmental perspective, because it does sound extremely judgmental. But if you're looking at it from an energetic perspective, again, this is part of the evolution, and we're into cycles and we're into growth. And one of the things that I'm not sure if you had told me this or somebody else, but I think it fits right in with the work that you do, is that we have guides, we have angels that are on our team, and we can fire them like deliberately, or new guides come in. You said this to me not long ago, Joanna, there's a new guide that's showing up for you. I've never seen this energy or felt this energy before. I mean, this was 2 weeks ago, maybe.
Mhm.
And I thought, oh, okay, we're coming online in a different way. So I don't know, maybe you can talk a little bit about that, how the energy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just kind of want to digress a little bit where you were talking about the signs. Um, Joanna's signs really grounded and rooted, where mine, water signs, air signs, we really kind of come together to balance, right? And you're a Libra, which again, creating that balance point, that viewpoint. But yeah, absolutely. In terms of the evolution of one's soul, as we take responsibility for our actions and reactions, and move through this in an esoteric way, new guides will come in. It's just like the energetics in friendships here. We outgrow people.
Mm-hmm.
They're complete. Contracts end, whether it's work related, friendship related, relationship related. Like sometimes that takes a little bit of time, but I mean, it's the same thing. And as we evolve and shift in our consciousness, our vibration, changes, new guides come in, and the old ones leave. So, I find all that quite fascinating. But one of the things is we need to pay attention, and I say we need, maybe I should change that. We are given the opportunity for guidance and direction on this spiritual path. And I think everybody watching on this channel is of that mindset. Right. So, yeah, maybe we'll go back into that, the whole guides and how to connect with your guides at another time. So in last night's meditation, there were some themes that came up, and I wanted to discuss with you in terms from the astrology, what's happening on the charts.
Right.
Does this resonate? Like, is this like really showing these highlights, and how can we move deeper into this? So the first thing that came forth, the message from the guides, was self-identification, knowing who you are, knowing what you want, the direction that you are choosing, and really taking that having that self-authority to follow it through, closing the door when it needs to, finishing up the work, changing a direction in it. If it's not working, like for me, I'm revamping my website. It's not working. So what do I need to do differently? And how are we being called? Now, is that showing up when looking at the astrological viewpoint in terms of self-identity, self-authority, self-identification? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the transits that's been going on since July of last year. So it's about a year in so far, and it's going to last to the end of 2024, is that the nodes of the moon are transiting through the signs of Libra and Aries. And the North node is in the sign of Aries, which completely lines up with your talk about the self, our identity, what we stand for, how we honor our individuality, our beingness, right?
Because it's the first sign in the zodiac, right?
It's the
So
first
for
sign in the
people that are
zodiac.
new to it, yeah.
Yeah, it's the first sign in the zodiac. And it's sort of like, it's the boldness of being in our body and who we are, learning really truly who we are. And the North Node that's transiting through Aries for this 1.5 year period is all about our energetic evolution moving forward. It's a lunar experience. So it's part of the energy of testing our own emotional boundaries of how far we can go and how far we're going to push ourselves while remaining safe and secure and not falling apart. Because that's truly one of the things with us humans, right? Is
Yeah.
we're terrified to go into unknown territory because we don't know what's happening there, and we don't know if we'll be emotionally regulated. We don't know if our nervous system can handle it. We don't know if we'll fall apart. And, energetically, it can feel like a death on the other side. If I go that far, what will I incinerate?
Well,
What
it's
happened
interesting
to
you're
me?
saying that about the death because, and I wrote down accepting the spiritual initiation as this new birthing process.
Yeah.
So, what they were bringing through is this is an internal process, as you were saying, like self, this I am presence, this
Mhm.
who am I, and how am I moving through my reality and inward reality.
Mhm.
Um, so what they were bringing forth is this process of internal evaluation, going over, reviewing all these things that had brought up.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I know that can bring up a lot of emotion. And when you were saying about self-regulating, regulating emotions, and we had talked about this maybe 2, 3 years ago when I brought through that channeled message that the guides had said, it will be very important moving forward that we strengthen not only our physical bodies, but our central nervous system for the amount of light, the light quotient that's coming in and the shift in frequency.
Mhm.
Very important because I guess you could say if one is not prepared, that's where you can go into states of what psychosis and even, feeling like shut off from the world.
Yeah.
That's the other side of it, is it not?
Mhm.
Like just the victim, um, the victimhood and closing off and closing down versus really coming forward.
Yeah. And I think I'll speak for myself. Like,
Yeah.
I absolutely know what it feels like to sort of be pushed to your limit and how scary that is. And so what happens is we tiptoe forward, and then we just, one step forward, two steps back, rather than the two steps forward, one step back. And it's a different energy if that's happening, right? So sometimes you're just like, it's it's scary, and we self-sabotage, right? We get sick, for example,
Yeah.
physically sick, or some type of physical manifestation of maybe what that looks like. Maybe there's more arguments, or, your daily, things are harder at work or whatever, because it is the internal reality really is all that matters, because the external is just mirroring the internal. There is no outside, right? We're
Yeah,
controlling it
exactly.
completely. And I do want to say too, that Aries energy, it is fire. This is a fiery, very courageous, very instinctive, passion, right? This could be argumentative. There could be some warrior energy, athletic energy. So one piece too is moving the body is incredibly important to this process and in this period. And again, we're sort of halfway through. Let me rephrase. We are at this moment halfway through 2024, and we've got 6 more months to really take advantage of this. Now, I also want to say that the nodes of the moon are points in the sky, and they move together. So the north node that we're discussing, our forward motion, is in Aries, which is that area of the south. And the south node is directly opposite in the sign of Libra. And this is the area of the other, or the partner. And so that's an area with the south node, particularly in this type of transit, that is a release point where we must let go of people, places, things, experiences, relationships that no longer serve. And every time we can notice if you're in some type of relay with a person, I mean, I'm going also with a thing like how I relate to my home. That's a relationship, right? How I relate to my neighborhood, also a relationship. It doesn't
Yeah.
need to be your partner
Well,
or
it's all relations,
yeah.
right? Everything is in relation, in
Mm-hmm.
relationship. Yeah, absolutely.
So there's this sort of rebalancing in Libra, right? This is the sign of the scales. And we are here to compromise and negotiate and find balance and harmony and peace and also find beauty. So where is there an imbalance in any of the places, things, circumstances that you're having a relay? I mean, obviously, particularly it's about people, number one. But I do think it's important to think about other types of relationships too. So, are you codependent? Are you projecting onto a partner? Are you expecting a particular outcome for a relationship that, is maybe an idealistic relationship, or, well, they promised me this and I'm gonna, fight to the death until I get it and they
Yeah.
deliver. How are you showing up in relationships? Are you taking the lead when maybe you should be, holding back a little bit and allowing the other person to lead? So it's incredibly important to think about that part. Same timeline. It started around last July, 2023, and it will continue until the end of 2024. These are the signs of the zodiac where the eclipses have been taking place over the last, year, and again
Yeah.
are going to go into the fall. And so it's very interesting.
Because
Who's
it's shining a light, right, on all those areas.
Yeah. Who
Everything's
are
being
you,
illuminated.
Aries? Yeah, who
Yeah.
are you, Aries? How are you showing up for yourself? And then are you fully yourself when you're showing up in relationship?
Ooh, that needs to be like to highlight that.
Yeah.
Your true self. And I think this is what the guys were saying, self-identity.
Mm-hmm.
Because as we evolve and shift in consciousness, are you allowing your true self to come to shine through? All of it, not just the shiny parts, all of it.
Mm-hmm. I think too, we compromise our true self in small ways
Yeah.
all the time. And then obviously in large ways that are more, well, not obviously, but they become obvious if it's such a shift that doesn't seem, when we're not in integrity, you maybe you've been in a situation with someone and you're just like, I actually can't believe that they just did that. It's not them, right? They took on some other persona that, maybe it's an old
Yeah.
identity from, again,
Mhm.
their childhood. This happens a lot too when we do things and we're like, wait, I thought I didn't do that behavior anymore.
But it's like you were saying, it's like going back around, but this is cyclical. These are cycles. This is how
There.
it works, right?
Mhm.
Everything is a cycle. So it's like, I always hear this song, that Carly Simon song, like coming around again. If you're willing to play the game, it will be coming around again. And it's
Yeah.
so true. It's like, it's coming around. Are you going to catch it this time? Like,
Yeah.
the guides had brought through as this energy continues to increase. Both like in light quotient, but also in speed, that we are being guided to become the observer, to be very present so that we can catch it,
Yeah.
that we can notice it,
Mm-hmm.
um, and make that energetic adjustment, as you were saying, like, ooh, you know, I thought and you and I have talked about this.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought I dissolved that. I thought that, I thought that was something of my past. And then it's like, well, hello, I'm here again.
Yeah. And hopefully it's coming, the next round is
Oh,
coming
yeah.
from a place of higher consciousness, right?
Yeah.
But it might also be, again, it's a mirror from the universe of, wait, this is actually something that is part of the learnings that you need to go through, the experiences that you need to go through in this lifetime. And some people are just, it's the same thing, deja vu over and over and over again with no forward movement. And for others, there is a lot more movement, or it shows up slightly differently. And this, I think, goes back to, the guides, where it's call the guides in and say, hey, this is happening again. Help me move out of this. What do I need to make a new choice? Is there an anomalous action, a new type of action to take, a new frequency that I can tap into to move me forward and out of this? And I've noticed this for myself personally, like over the last 9 months in particular. I don't know how successful I've been in moving to new
Oh, you
territory, but
have.
my awareness of it is very heightened, and I'm giving myself full credit for that. Why not?
Absolutely. And as when you were saying that, I was seeing the energetics of it too. Because they were saying it's really important to be grounded and centered in who you are. And the best way to do that is take time to commune with your soul, with your heart,
Mhm.
and get outside in nature. And that's exactly what I was seeing as a visual when you were speaking that into form. It's like, I'm calling in this guidance, but in order to fully receive it, one must be grounded, one must be centered in thyself.
Mhm.
So a very strong message, and we've been talking about this, and I've been talking about this on my feed. I have been called to go out in nature, whether if I'm walking 2 hours a day, or lying on the grass, or connecting to a tree, or hanging out in the water. That is also part of really feeling rooted and grounded, because this energy that is moving through us requires us to anchor it. And this new earth coding, this new earth codex, we are receiving the nutrients, from this higher light when we take time to commune with that. And I think that's really important. And when we do that, then the energy is set, right? Because if you can call in, but if you're not aware and you're not regulated and centered, it may be there, but you may not hear it. Like
Mhm.
sometimes, in meditation, when at the end we kind of offer insight, questions, and sometimes, the guides will bring forth, there's been a message, but you haven't been listening. We've been trying to communicate it to you, but you haven't been listening. You've been too busy, or you're just kind of brushing it off. And, that's another thing that's part of the lesson, you
Yeah.
know? So, I think that is important to move forward with, is what am I doing, to take time to really nurture, to commune, to love, to connect back to myself as we move through this
Mhm.
ever changing turbulent time. I'm going to say turbulent because there's a lot going on.
It is. There's a lot that's changing energetically in the collective. There's a lot of fear also. And again, this energy of release in relationships. So the ground's unstable in some cases, because if you can't rely on the people in your life, or you're holding on to relationships that are no longer serving you, again, there's that what's next, that forward motion that you're going into the unknown.
Mm,
But the fact of the matter is that us humans have been through lots of ages and epics, and wars
yeah.
and feasts and famines and conflicts and periods of peace, and we're continuing to move through it. So I think for me, I always look again on the massively macro scale, the cosmic scale, and understand that the cycles and the rhythms of the universe as a whole, tuning into that, the benevolence of
Mm,
that frequency of the universe, there's nothing wrong there. It's just pure love. So the more
exactly.
that we can tune into that, because again, there's no outside, right? So all of that is available within, even if it's just for a spark. In my meditation practice, I remember kind of at the beginning, as I was very new, I heard a teacher say that we sat down for 11 minutes or 31 minutes or some period of time that I thought, how am I going to do this? What's going to happen? But the teacher said, if you can get 5 seconds or 10 seconds into that infinite space where you're completely connected to all there is without judgment or thought, just that miniature experience of it that's what we're here for. And so you don't have to be a master meditator. You don't have to be
No.
getting messages from your guides or the angels or seeing 555 on a license plate in front of you or anything like that. It's these very, very small moments. And I think to your point, we find that in nature, regardless, as long as you
Yeah.
show up fully present as your own being, the beingness of you. Very important.
Yeah. And the awareness and the readiness to connect with it. Yeah. I also wanted to ask too, in terms of the energetics with water, because, and I had talked about this 3 years ago, I think, on my channel about the waters, healing the waters within us, healing the waters within the land, the water vapors. Everything is of water. Everything is of sound. Everything is being almost it's recording, right? It's an imprint. It's a sound code. And I want to know, or I'm interested in your thoughts as we move through this time, the energetics between the water, the frequencies of the water signs, and the frequency, like what we're moving through right now with the energy of Pisces, right? And the energy of that Saturnian energy, right? Which is completely different energy. But when we work with those two together, how we can benefit from this. Can you explain?
It's very important to tune into the elements to begin with. And I want to say that in all spiritual traditions, there is an understanding of how the elements work and understanding that all of the elements are within us: earth, air, fire, water. In some traditions, you add in ether. Some might have other more esoteric elements adding into the mix, and then an alchemical mix. And the pairing of those elements generally is, at least in astrology, they're paired as earth and water and fire and air. And earth and water work together where literally water is moving landscape. Water moves earth. You see this with hurricanes or floods. And I mean, all of us probably have some experience in the last, not in the recent past with some kind of flooding or hurricane experience, because, the waters are rising, right? The oceans are rising right now. And they literally are changing the landscape of borders and countries and towns and, local parks, right? Or I live near the mountains, and it's the fires come in and then the floods come in. So, the fire destroys the vegetation, like there's less earth, so that when the water comes in, it's just moving really, really fast. So fire and air, and then earth and water. And then, as you mentioned, Pisces. So Pisces is the 12th sign and final sign of the zodiac. And this is the sign where it culminates, the experience of life, the experience of living, the cosmic field. It goes from individual areas. We talked about the self, our identity, and it moves through this sort of evolution to that 12th sign, Pisces, where we come into, I want to say, recommunion with the infinite field, with our
Unification?
unification, exactly, like a unifying consciousness frequency where the divine is and always has been and remains. So it's the house of endings, or the sign of endings. It's also the sign of self-undoing, where we've gone through the entire experience of being, and then what, right? Pisces is in modern astrology, ruled by the planet Neptune, the god of the sea. So we're talking deep, deep, deep waters. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm just like, oh, I can't wait to get into that energy.
Well, it's really fascinating. And for anybody that spent time in the ocean or any deep body of water, I live near the Pacific Ocean, so I have a particular experience with that. And you can tiptoe into the ocean or the sea or wherever you are, and
Yeah.
even a river, right? You can put your toes in and you can see your feet, and it's clear, and there's rocks, and it feels funny, and maybe there's some sand or some kelp, and then you wade in a little bit deeper, and all of a sudden you can't see your feet anymore, and maybe you take one more step and you've lost your footing entirely, and now you're in the energy of something greater than you. And we can lose ourselves there. And in Pisces, there is a lot of illusion and a lot of deception and a lot of, murkiness, where things simply are no longer clear. They're not defined. And I think that there's ways that we can tune into that water energy and float on the surface and allow the divine to hold us. And there's ways to get lost in the undertow or a riptide, and the ground is taken out from under you. So this is an area where there's a lot of hidden facets. And at the same time, just tuning into water as an energetic of consciousness and a flowing energy too, because I don't know if you've ever been in a body of water and you look at it and you're like, oh, it's absolutely still, it's not moving at all. But then you get in it and it literally moves your body somewhere else, because there's energy coming from such a deep place that where you began is not where you're going to end. It's a little scary as a kid. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, to go into the water and kind of get
The
the
current of
current.
life, right?
Exactly. It takes you somewhere. And I remember as a child, going into the Pacific Ocean and, leaving my shoes, my flip-flops on the beach and going for a swim, and then coming out of the water and having no idea where my shoes are, and I can't see where my mom is. And it's scary. It's scary to surrender in that way, but that's
This is
part of
amazing.
life.
Exactly. Well, I mean, first of all, I just want to say I love your analogy around the water, because I mean, going back to what you were saying and the depths of it, creating, this is all part of the unknown. This is part of like our psyche, right? What is moving around in there, what thoughts, what behaviors, what we have learned from our past, and as you were saying, on a collective level.
Mhm.
So moving deep into that, and also to what is being reflected, because that shimmering light of the water, what is being reflected, what illusions, what disillusions are basically being shown to us right now. So I love that, how you use that water analogy. And then again, the current, everything is moving and flowing. And yeah, you can jump into a body of water and get pulled under. Or if you are aware, hey, there's a current here.
Mm,
So I need to be
right.
aware of
Yeah.
this. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to float with it. However, I have to make sure I can hold on to something.
Mm-hmm. To stay grounded.
Or, yeah.
And
Um,
it's interesting too. I mean, I do love this analogy.
I know
because
it's great.
because also I've been going down to the beach quite a lot lately as the weather's gotten better, and it's fascinating as well of what time do you go down, right? This is, the tides are changing constantly throughout the day, and I do want to say, as you know, the moon, right? The moon of the earth is causing these tides to move and to set that frequency. And it changes throughout the day, every 24-hour period, and it changes throughout the month as the moon waxes and wanes from new moon to full moon and back again. So these lunations, we're very, very tied to them. Our bodies are made up of water, the rhythms of our life, the rhythms of our day, our awakened time, our sleep time, our dream time, the time that we nurture ourselves through food, right? We create rituals around this, and it doesn't need to be, a 10-course meal every day at lunch, but we all have our own rituals of, this is the time I have my coffee, this is the time I have my afternoon snack, right? Like, these are the days where I get takeout versus, cooking for myself or cooking for my family or a special friend. So all of these rhythms of life are frequencies and as you're saying, and they're constantly moving, and we get to, if we're tuned to it, we get to change them, we get to direct the energy. And also, I think for people that are tuning into themselves, of what wants to come in, what's a new,
Yes,
what am I allowing to move that's new?
I think it's really important. Thank you for bringing that up, and going back to one of the first things that the guys brought forth is self-identification. And what are you claiming? What are you calling in? The importance of it. Why? I'm choosing this. I'm claiming this. I am holding my space in this. Why? Because this is why I'm here. In the grand collective energy print of it, this is my energetic coding. And we are of luminous light. And when you were saying in terms of taking that time to nurture self, and ask self, what is it that you need? When am I being called here? Why? What am I choosing to eat, to commune with? Because it's all communion with self. And I keep hearing my guide say, as we become more luminous, more light, we are going to be eating lighter, differently, and really taking time to enjoy, rather than, you were mentioning fast food, just shoving it down. This energy that's moving in, or asking us to connect with it, I keep hearing the word commune with it, is being in reverence with it. And that is what is being asked. And this is the light that's being illuminated within us and around us on the planet. What is working, what's not working. Everything's coming into this opportunity to look at that from a different viewpoint. And I think, this inner landscape, what you were saying about hurricanes and volcanoes and stuff, this is also happening within us, within the waters, within our bodies. So, I've been hearing people say they've just been feeling, I'm going to start working out. I'm going to start taking better care of myself. I'm feeling this. They're feeling this call to make that internal shift in terms of their health, the food that they're eating, the choices that they're making, the relationships that they're interacting with. And I feel that the more and more attuned we become with our higher self, our light, the more that we will not tolerate, or that energy will just simply dissolve.
Absolutely. I mean, we both experienced this, and I've seen it in, my community. It's simply that if you are moving into the realm of states of higher consciousness, or this attunement or communion with your higher self, the energies that you're co-creating with the universe, spending more time in nature, listening to what nature is telling you, tuning back into the deep internal knowing of who you are. People that are at different vibrations, lower vibrations, they're basically going to fall off. They're going to disappear. And sometimes it's painful and shocking, I think, at the beginnings as this
Yeah.
begins to happen, because you feel like you're losing something. And again, that forward motion's a little scary. We don't know what's on the other side. These people that I've been relying on, they're my family. We've done all these holidays together. And all of a sudden you're moving to a new space, and there's a gap. There's an energetic gap. But there's so much more available to us as individuals for our own evolution and the experience of our soul's desire. The more we enter into that, the more love capacity that we have for ourselves and that expression of our soul. So ultimately, that what we've left behind, it's just sort of like, it's just gone.
Yeah, and as you were saying, it's just different streams,
Yeah.
they have agreed that this is where they're going to hang out, and
Yeah.
that's all right, you know. Um, it's I feel everything is divinely orchestrated. And there's always a choice point. We always get to choose. What are we choosing?
Mm.
Um, and I think it's really important that we take time to really show up.
Yeah. And this goes to Saturn, which you had mentioned, the planet Saturn. So as you mentioned, Saturn is transiting in the sky right now through the sign of Pisces. So we talked about that universal consciousness and the waters, the deep waters of the depth of our psyche and our unconscious mind. But Saturn is a builder and a disciplinarian and a taskmaster. And Saturn is asking us to step into our self-mastery and our maturity to take responsibility.
Mhm.
And the more we tune into that aspect of ourselves as like, we're the one constructing our own life.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
that is a very complicated, on some level, it seems very basic, but it can be very complicated because we don't want to do it, right? We want to shirk responsibility most of the time.
Right. Or we don't want to take ownership for
Right.
what we have co-created.
Exactly. And we're looking to somebody else to blame, like, oh, well, they
Yeah.
told me to do it, or I'm just following orders, right? Or, my
Mhm.
parent told me, my teacher told me, my boss told me, or,
Yeah.
this guy, the guy on the news told me, or this political figure told me. And that's the shadow of Saturn, right? Giving up your own self-authority to others, to somebody that you think might have dominion over you. And then
Mhm.
you're falling into some sort of submissive, passive role where you're not taking responsibility. So as we grow in consciousness, we are faced with challenges of, what am I made of? Where do I stand? Where's my line, my red line that I will or will not cross in terms of, every aspect of life? I want to live here. I don't want to live there. I want to work for this type of boss. I want to work for myself. This is my role in the family, but I need to change it and shift it and alchemize it in a new way. I'm becoming a step parent, for example. Like, when people become step parents, there's all kinds of new relationships and boundaries that you need to set up. And so I'm just saying, there's just infinite ways that this frequency can show up in our lives. And the bottom line is staying true to yourself, as we were talking about, that Aries energy, right?
Yeah.
Who am I? What do I stand for? And then creating a construction of your conscious lived experience that honors that who you are. but truly to the depth of you. And the more we do this, the more benefit and beauty life has to offer. And another one of my lovely analogies I like to throw out through astrology is this energy about building a garden, putting a garden together. So if you want to create a garden, you can throw some seeds out the window and see what happens. And that's kind of a Pisces maybe way to think about it, right? Like my instinct says, I need a garden. Let me throw some seeds and see what happens, where the wind takes it. Maybe it'll rain, maybe it won't rain. Or you can till the soil. You can create a bed for your vegetables or your flowers. You can have a border. You can actually plant the seeds in a row. You can put little markers up, cucumbers, tomatoes, dandelions.
That's very Saturnian.
It's very Saturnian, right?
Yeah.
And you have a regimen, you have some ground rules and you have some discipline. And with that discipline, so much joy and beauty and productive, the productivity of nature will take hold and deliver that piece of what you want. So how are we doing that for ourselves? How are we?
Weeding out what we don't need and nourishing the seeds, the
Yeah.
plants, the flowers.
Yeah. Sometimes we get lost, and that's also part of Saturnian experiences. Is there's so much noise and we don't know where to go, and we're kind of falling into the thing of like, well, this person told me and I thought my life was going to look this way. But again, tuning back into that self-mastery, self-maturity, feeling that and knowing that you are the only person responsible for your life, and that it doesn't matter what advice you get from anybody.
Yeah.
If it's not in integrity to who you are, it's going to lead you down the garden path that's not going to serve you.
Absolutely. And, this Saturnian energy too is all about focus and direction. As you were saying, you can plant the seed, right? But how are you focusing on nourishing that seed, supporting that seed? What are the requirements for it to really flourish and grow? And it's, as you said, it's not just about throwing it out and, sending love and compassion to it. But it's about the intention behind where am I going to place it? How is my soil? How am I nourishing the soil or myself, my own soils? Am I getting enough water? Are you watering it?
Yeah.
Are you pulling out the weeds? Are you de-weeding, going through your life, eliminating, right? And are you giving it fertilizer? Is it getting everything it needs? And I love that analogy. I'm going to use that analogy. And then that Saturnian energy is like, listen, you're doing the work. You're going to your garden every day. You're talking to the plants. Well, maybe that's just me. But you're watering it. You're pruning it. You're giving it love, everything it needs. I'm going to support you.
Yeah. The universe is here to support us in all ways. There's no separation. Again, that's the magic of being here, in this 3D carbon body, where we're here for a reason, and just to be here and to be authentically ourselves, and to stand in that place of like, I'm taking responsibility for this life and I'm doing those things. Now, we get taken off track constantly. I mean, it's like there's nobody that is, in my opinion, that's living this 100% of the time, because life, right? There's a lot of distractions, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of growth, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of joy and beauty as well. And, take the afternoon off, have some fun with your friends, go to the beach. It doesn't have to be super serious all the time. And that's the Saturn gets that reputation of really structured and organized and disciplined, and like, it must be this way or everything's going to fall apart. And it's not always like that, because again, as long as you have the structure, you can do whatever you want. We all have different types of gardens that we're growing, different
Yeah.
lives that we're building, different experiences that we want to have, different types of friend groups, different types of jobs. That's how we all display our own individuality. But honoring that for our individual selves, nobody can take that away from us.
Yeah, it's the energy that you're putting into it, the intention behind it, as you said, as long as you're paying attention, directing it, cultivating it, shifting it, moving it forward, you know, that energy is what I'm understanding will help and support you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I feel that for everybody watching, what are kind of like the final words you would like to say? Because we've really we've really unpacked a lot, um, in terms of clearing out the old, self-identification, um, moving through these patterns. What would you like to leave everyone with today in terms of the energetics for the next couple of weeks?
Well, in astrologically,
Yeah.
Saturn is actually stationed. It's sort of, I call it parked. It's parked in Pisces. It's not moving in the sky. From our perspective on Earth, it looks like the planet is not moving. And Saturn is going to be here for the next month at this in this energy. So things are a little slower. Time is slowing down potentially, which is a beautiful thing, I think, to happen if you love summer, long summer nights, to feel the energy that these days are long and luscious and beautiful. But at the same time, this energy is tuning us deeper into these themes that we're talking about. So, number one, it's normal to feel like there might feel heavy pressure, or things aren't changing fast enough, or you're being confronted with an issue that maybe feels immovable. And what I would offer to that is, this is a time of reflection and to
Mhm.
tune in to that energy of who you are. What does taking responsibility look like? What does self-mastery or self-authority mean to you? Because ultimately we're the only ones that matter, right? Let's face it, we're all the stars of our own movies and this movie of life. And so I want to say that this time does feel pressured, and I want to acknowledge that and allow people to understand, okay, this is what we're meant for in this moment. And we don't have to rush forward, but to tune into who we are and what we've made of our life thus far, as you mentioned, and what we want to reconstruct and redo, and where we want to, make new choices into the future. This is a period to really think deeply about that. And it'll be different for all of us. So whatever theme is already going on in your life, tune into that, because it's already happening. The
Yeah, and
energy.
that would be based on your chart, right? On
Yeah.
what's being highlighted, or I keep hearing the word illuminated in your chart, right? So maybe it's something around work, or maybe it's something around home, or money. It just depends. But with the astrology, it's basically that area in your chart will be illuminated, or you, as you said, you may feel pressure, but this pressure is here to guide you, to direct you, so that you focus on it. Like, hello, I'm
Yeah.
here, pay attention, because if you're not, it's going to get kind of loud.
It's going to get loud, and it might get uncomfortable, and it might never go away, right? It's just like you're going to keep getting the lesson over and over, and it'll get more painful and pressurized.
Yeah.
So absolutely. I guess I would say too, with this piece of it, is if you're confronted with a situation, it's how can I take responsibility to shift the energy? Because no one's going to
Absolutely.
come to save me. Nobody else is going to shift the energy for you. And even if it's a situation, and you and I have talked about this. Like, I'll say, you know, for me, it's like, I just couldn't do it. There was a situation I had where I was desperately trying to change the energy, and I sort of had to take myself completely out of the situation because I was just so wrapped up and twisted myself in circles, right? And that's okay too, to just say, hey, I'm having trouble, but I need to remove myself and give myself some space. So, however you're meant to do it, move through this time, tune into it, and see if you can add a little bit more ease, or even just say, if a circumstance with a friend, for example, we were talking about relationships. I don't know how we got into this situation, but you're important to me, and I want to take responsibility for my part in being involved in this conflict or weird situation or whatever. And I hope we can get past this. And maybe we need a little bit of time or space or a conversation, or maybe let's go listen to some music together, or go to a movie, or whatever the thing is. But that, just the practice of taking responsibility will move the energy.
Absolutely. I mean, that the topic about connecting in relationships, we could have a whole other YouTube video about that, and maybe we will. Because I
Yeah,
think
well, I want to say one final thing on this too, and I
yeah.
think this is a Tibetan practice, a Buddhist practice. It's called recapitulation. And this is simply go back to a memory or an experience that you just had, and even if it's something that happened a couple hours ago, and re-experience it in your subconscious mind, because the mind doesn't know the difference between reality and non-reality.
Mhm.
Replay the conversation or whatever happened, and write a new script and put a new
Structure it.
energy around it, right? And all of a sudden, the pressure comes down. It's like a pressure release valve. It can happen, and you've taught me this. You can have an imaginary conversation with someone, whether it's in your head, sometimes out loud. I love talking to myself. It's more fun talking to another person, right? So, but to speak out loud of, okay, you know, friend, this is the thing that I wanted to say to you yesterday, and I didn't get a chance to say it, but I'm going to say it now. And I'm going to put that energy out, whether it's you sitting in the car or whatever, like alone, whether they're in the room or not in the room, and you just bring that energy forward. And I think that too can move. It's the ripple of the frequency in the cosmic field. We have a lot of room to master, pretty
The
much.
intention behind it, yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And really using your sound current to shape shift or change the energy dynamic around it. And as you were saying, um, this is this time of taking responsibility for ourselves. How are we showing up? And it's also important, I feel, when you were saying kind of taking a step back, is to slow down and truly listen. What is your internal dialogue? You know, how is your body feeling when you're in relation or relationship to others, whether it be work environment or partnerships, right? These are all guide points that are being highlighted for us right now, to shift, and to evolve and to grow into the luminous beings that we are, right? So I love that. And I really do think that we should hop on and maybe do another video on relationships, because I feel that in itself is a completely different topic. But
Mhm.
yeah, self-identification, how we're showing up, um, who we are, how we're feeling about coming forward. Um, these are all really being highlighted right now. So I think, you know, our actions are always part of our character, as you're saying, in this movie that we're playing. So slow down, everyone. Take time to really commune with self before taking action. Get really clear. Have those conversations with yourself, have them, and have those energetic conversations with others before connecting, perhaps. And then maybe it'll move a little bit more smoothly than just, when you're more rooted and grounded and centered in yourself rather than just, as you were saying, that Mars energy coming forth, attacking, that victim fire energy. We can work with this in a more creative, loving, compassionate way. We have this opportunity to do that. So thank you so much, Joanna. It's been such a pleasure. I feel like you and I could talk for hours upon hours upon hours. And thank you, everyone. If you are still watching, thank you so much. And of course, if you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. And please leave in the comments if there's anything that you would like us to discuss on our next video. And if you would like to contact Joanna for an astrology reading, I will leave her information below. I can hear my ear. It's ringing. My guides are like, they're so excited that we finally did this.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So thank you, everyone. God bless. We'll talk soon. Bye for now.